It might be a rhetorical question, but what good comes out of prosecuting a whistleblower? This morning, the trial of whistleblower David McBride got underway. While that was kicking off, Senator David Shoebridge was putting forward a motion to the Senate for them to vote to end the prosecution of whistleblower David McBride and to demand that the Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, use his powers to stop the prosecution. Here's some of what he had to say.
President, as we gather here today, indeed as our day commenced in the Senate, the trial of David McBride commenced just a few short kilometres from here in the ACT Supreme Court. The trial of David McBride, a brave Australian, a whistleblower whose consciousness could not allow him to be silent while he had evidence of war crimes committed by Australian Defence Force personnel in Afghanistan, and nobody would listen to him. Nobody in his chain of command would act. Nobody in the oversight committees was willing to act, to commence an investigation of the evidence that David McBride had of tragically compelling evidence that Australian soldiers, a minority of Australian soldiers, but Australian Special Force soldiers, had committed war crimes in Afghanistan. And when he tried and tried and tried to bring that to the attention through the chain of command in the ADF, and every door shut on him, eventually his sense of duty, his sense of what was right, led him to blow the whistle and tell the public about what had happened. And thank God he did. Thank you, David McBride, for what you did and what other brave whistleblowers have done. Think about the blowing of the whistle on the robo-debt scandal and how whistleblowers were silenced and marginalised. Think about Richard Boyle, who blew the whistle on appalling practices in the ATO, to be hounded out of the ATO and also prosecuted, despite being vindicated by a Senate inquiry and an internal ATO inquiry. And David McBride, his allegations have been vindicated by an independent review and report.
After being interrupted by Senator Penny Wong, he continued.
So we have this situation. David McBride, the whistleblower, the truth-teller, who not only blew the whistle but had his actions vindicated by an independent inquiry, detailing dozens and dozens of incidents of war crimes. And I know the government doesn't want to hear this, and I know they'd rather this debate didn't happen in the Senate. They would like to just quietly see David McBride put in jail for telling the truth, because that's their actions. And we say this: there is one person who can stop this. One person who can actually listen to the truth and listen to all of that rhetoric we got from Labor when they were in opposition. And that person is the Labor Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, who, with a flick of his pen, could end the prosecution of David McBride, who faces the very real prospect of years and years in jail simply for telling the public the truth about war crimes. And while David McBride is facing the trial today, not a single member of the ADF who committed the war crimes has been brought to trial. There is one pending prosecution. One pending prosecution. But the first person to face the trial, the first person to face jail, is not those who disgraced the uniform of the ADF and committed war crimes, but it's the whistleblower David McBride. And the voices that are being forgotten in this debate, that are written out by the Attorney General when he refuses to take this action, the most powerful voices, the ones we should listen to first and foremost, are the voices of those Afghan families and communities who saw their brothers and their sons murdered and have not received an apology, have not received respect, have not received a cent of compensation, and they look at the Australian government trying to put in jail the whistleblower, and they look with disgust, and they're right to do that. What does Australia stand for when we have compelling evidence of troops committing war crimes and the person we prosecute, the person the Albanese government wants to jail, is the lawyer and the whistleblower. I commend this motion to the Senate.
The question now is that the motion moved by Senator Shoebridge be agreed to. Those of that opinion will move to the right of the chair, the noes to the left of the chair. Division required. Ring the bells for 1 minute.
So how'd they vote? Well, let's just say that once again we saw that it's only the crossbench that appear free to act on their conscience.
Being 11 ayes and 24 noes, the question is resolved in the negative.
You're sensing a theme here? Look, I expected to see the coalition over here, but my expectations of them are way beyond low. It's subterranean, really. But 18 months ago, if you'd asked me whether or not I thought the Labor Party would be voting against ending the prosecution of a whistleblower, well, they made all the right noises in opposition and said all the right things, so you'd have to excuse me for expecting more of them here. Call me naive, but on this issue at least, I would have banked on them coming through and doing the right thing. The thing is, this whole Senate thing, it's largely performative. Agreement from the Senate is not strictly required to end this prosecution.
The Labor Attorney-General Mark Dreyfus, who with a flick of his pen could end the prosecution of David McBride.
That is absolutely true.
It's true, as the member for Clark has pointed out in his motion, that the Attorney-General has power under the Judiciary Act to discontinue proceedings.
As awkward as that may be for some people to hear or even say out loud. All that's needed is this guy and a pen. In case you had any doubt, here's a lawyer telling you the same thing.
The Attorney-General, Mark Dreyfus KC, and the Commonwealth Director of Public Prosecutions both have the power at any time to intervene and discontinue this case. There's no public interest in prosecuting whistleblowers. The Attorney-General knows that. Last year he intervened to end the case against Bernard Collaery, who helped expose Australia's wrongdoing in Timor.
But the Attorney-General has chosen to hide behind Section 71 of the Judiciary Act and his claim that he can only use his power in very unusual and/or exceptional circumstances.
That power to discontinue proceedings is reserved for very unusual and exceptional circumstances.
This is despite the fact that Section 71 does not refer to any such restrictions, and the Attorney-General has, so far at least, been less than forthcoming with answers to questions he's been asked as to how he arrived at that interpretation. The Attorney-General's had a month to answer these, by the way, but I guess we'll have to keep waiting. I'm sure the government are hoping that this one just quietly goes away and there's not too much media attention. It'll be interesting to see how the media actually report on this one. Stay tuned, I guess.